Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm meadsy69. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are rolling back the years. Yes, we're rolling back 7 years or 7.5 years to my first tier 5 tank in the game. Yes, my tier 5, the first tier 5 tank that I owned in this game, and it was the AT2. Yes, the AT2 was an absolute beast, but back then people were too impatient, including myself. I was no, to be honest, it was more up the line. So AT2 I grinded, but no one really liked this tank because of how slow it was. Now, if I started all again and I was grinding this line, nowadays the AT2 is an absolute beast. Now, the whole line is you got the AT, obviously the AT15 and stuff like that, the Tortoise up the line. That's not really heavily well armored. It should be. They should all be well armored, and this tank is pretty much, I think, one of the best armor profile tanks in not only tier 5 but in this line, in this whole line. People struggle to deal with this tank. Now, this is what you will see. Of course, you've got spaced armor there on the tracks. You got the lower plate that is over 206 millimeters thick. You got that middle plate there, which is over almost 200 millimeters thick, and you got the upper plate, which is over 200 millimeters thick as well. You've also got to bear in mind, this is tier 5. This is tier 5, so nothing is going to penetrate that. You got the turret as well, which is very, very strong. On the right side of it, you've got almost 300 millimeters, and on that part again, on the right side at the top, you've got over 200 millimeters, and the same for the left side. The gun mantlet is thick as hell, and of course the hatch is over the hatch is around 100 millimeters. So the hatch is pretty much the only part that a lot of tanks will be able to penetrate. Of course, if you're looking down on the tank, it does become a little bit weaker, but yeah, coming up against newer players, and this is why this tank is so good now, because of course newer players, if you're new to the game, they don't really know how to deal with this. Of course, you might have some bots as well, but yeah, this is an absolute beast of a tank. It also has DPM. Believe it or not, it does have some DPM. So let's have a look at the stats. So yes, it doesn't go fast at all. It's quite slow, but the aim time is 1.6, dispersion 0.350. You've got the gun depression, which is 7 degrees, not too bad at all. You've only got 13 degrees of gun elevation though, so that is not great at all. The mobility, again, as I've said, 25 forward, which is pretty much one of the worst in tier 5. I think maybe only the Angry Connor might be slower. I'm not entirely sure. And back, it only goes 10. Of course, the Angry Connor goes back quite quickly, so it is the slowest, pretty much the slowest tank in tier 5, almost backwards and forward. So the where is the DPM? We had the DPM. Did we see the DPM? Let's have a look. No, we haven't been the DPM. So the DPM is here. So 1605 DPM. Not the best of DPM, but it's okay. It's not too bad for what it is. It only has a 90 alpha gun, so the reload is quite short. It's only like just over 3 seconds per reload, but you're only doing sort of 90 per shot. So you've got 110 penetration on your standard AP, but you've got 180 on your premium. So that will get through most tier 6 tanks, but you do have to use that premium rounds. And so yeah, it is now It is a fun tank to play. I do enjoy it, especially if you're on a reroll or if you're on a new account that you're coming up against players that don't know how to deal with this tank. And of course, if you're coming up against bots, real life bots, they will not be able to deal with this tank either. So we're just going to get into battle just to see how this tank plays out in the live gameplay. So I've got two battles, not both of them, like they're not the best of battles, they're really not the best of battles, but I just wanted to really showcase what this tank is capable of, armor profile wise and DPM wise. So of course, as we know, it is a very slow tank. The only problem with this tank is if you've got quite a bit of battles and you've never grinded this line, I'm going to get deleted in a minute from this KV2, so yeah, I almost got ripped apart there, but I still managed to get some block damage, and we are going to get a little bit of block damage in this game, but the only problem I have with this tank now is if you've had a lot of battles and you haven't grinded up this line yet and you're about to start, the only thing is almost disappointing in a way is when you've had quite a bit of battles, you are mostly always top tier. So I'm very rarely coming up against tier 4s if I'm in a tier 5 game, like very rarely. It just doesn't happen. It's like 90% chance, or 90% of the time I am top tier, and only sort of 10% of the time sorry, 90% of the time I am bottom tier, and only 10% of the time I'm top tier. And obviously tier 6s don't really struggle to penetrate this tank. They can pen it nice and easy. As you can see, we got ripped from the KV2, but it was a HE shot and he's still going to do some damage. So yeah, I mean, if you are a new player and you are thinking of a line to grind, this is a good line, don't get me wrong, it's a really good line if you know how to play them. Of course, the Death Star is kind of like a tank on its own. It shouldn't really be the Death Star in tier 10. When you grind up this line, the Death Star is completely different to every other tank in this line. It should really be the Badger. It should be, the Death Star should be like a premium tank, and the Badger should have been tier 10, because it just makes sense. It's the same kind of play style to the rest of these tanks. So grinding up this line to get to the Death Star is just completely different. It's completely different to play the Death Star than it is. So you have to be patient with this tank. I know most people that got the Death Star, I mean, the Death Star is the most played tier 10, like period. It's the most played tier 10. It's always been the most played tier 10, but it's also been the worst performing tier 10, and that's because people just underestimate the Death Star, or they overestimate the Death Star. All they see is that massive alpha gun, and that's what they want, even though it's the worst performing tank, and it has been the worst performing tank in the game for a very long time, but people still play the Death Star. People still want the Death Star because of one reason, and that is the alpha. But because people want the Death Star so much, they don't want to grind this line because they find it boring. It's completely different. As I've said, the Death Star has a high alpha, low DPM. This whole line pretty much has low alpha, high DPM, like the whole line. The AT-15, 4,000 DPM. The Tortoise, almost 4,000 DPM. Like, they've got a massive amount of DPM, but they don't really have the high alpha. So people don't want to grind it. They don't want to grind it. They want a Death Star. They don't want anything else. They don't want to grind this line. All they want is the Death Star. So a lot of people skip the line. Most people that are grinding this line don't really grind it. They just use free XP to get their way to the Death Star. And to be honest, after this tank, I did exactly the same. I got to tier 6 and it was just like, do you know what? I'm a gold noob. I'm just going to put money on, and I'm going to get enough XP to just get the Death Star outright. And that's what I done, and that's what a lot of people done. It wasn't really until I went back and fought and started playing them, because of course I wanted the aces on them, and I thought, do you know what, this line isn't too bad if you know how to play them. They are still disappointing. The higher tier you go up, they are still disappointing because of the lack of armor profile that I expected they're going to have. And this is pretty much the best armor profile tank in the whole line. If you know how to play it, you will bounce almost everything that comes your way. So you can see here, I mean, we haven't got a lot of damage. It is difficult trying to get the damage because it is such a slow tank. It's a low alpha. It's literally like 90 alpha, but you angle correctly, and sometimes you don't even have to angle in this tank. If you hide the hatch, because that hatch is a weak point to a lot of tanks, especially when you are bottom tier. I mean, we did manage to get ourselves into a tier 4 game here, but you can see we bounced. I mean, we haven't bounced a lot, but we've still bounced 810 alpha damage, which is still more than our hit points. So you will get that. So I would suggest that if you've never played this tank, definitely go grind it, because it is a fun line when you know how to play. And when you're a bit more patient, it is a fun line to tank. So let me know your thoughts on the 82 and the whole line. Hope you enjoyed today's video, guys. I'm meadsy69, and I will catch you all soon. Bye bye. With